obviously I'm going for monkeyfish.
Do I have a choice?
No. I stole it.
Okay. Old pendulous breast herself.
Chase you through a cave. I know you do outside.
And we're going to talk about how wrong you are after this.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Monsters Lounge. Really threw me. We are on opposite sides of what we usually are. I was like, what's happening? What's happening? I like this look that Tressa has going on. There's a black turtleneck involved, and her hair's just kind of up with like some locks hanging down. It's very 60s, and I like it.
Oh, thank you. Always the goal.
Yeah, like what was that show that was like the spies?
Get Smart?
No, but that was such a good one. Did you know in high school I tried to start a band even though I don't play an instrument, and our band name was Get Smart, and the first
I did
song,
not know that.
First song was going to be 99. So I'm just
She
saying.
was my first profile Facebook in 2009.
Oh. You know what? Forget the show. Let's just go watch episodes.
Let's. Okay.
So we get to talk about some Wild West stories. Not that Wild West, but the Western area. I guess maybe it is. Like the high desert area, which I'm excited because I love that area. Whenever I say
not
Wild West,
that not the guy Wesley, but the actual geographical location that was wild at some point.
Yeah. Whenever I say Wild West, I always think about like New Mexico and Arizona. Like I really tend to ignore the rest of the West area.
It's pretty West.
It is pretty West. I go real far with it, and I'm not. I don't really know why. I don't really know why or how. So John Olsen is our guest tonight, and he is, man, he's first and foremost, he's an author. He has had over 30 years in the paranormal field, investigating, interviewing witnesses, all kinds of interactions with high strangeness. And like I said, he is an author. Over 10 books, he was telling us earlier. And he's also the co-host of Stranger Bridgeland series, which is also the title of his books. And I'm super excited to hear his stories because they cover a huge range of the paranormal. So please help me welcome John. Yay.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. This is always so much fun. So,
well, thank you so much for coming on. Yeah,
no worries. This is great. So
excellent. We were talking right before the episode started that you are in the Utah area, specifically more like North Utah, right?
Yeah, I'm up in the valley I live in is called Cache Valley, spelled Cache, like a and for those of you that don't know, that's what the trappers, in particular the French trappers, called where they hid their stuff was a cache, and so they named it after Cache Valley. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then the area that kind of unofficially, my books are called Bridgerland because the Bridgerland book series, because here in northern Utah and part of Idaho and part of Wyoming was discovered, I guess you could call it discovered, by Jim Bridger, which was a famous trapper and helped people settle the area. And so they call it Bridgerland. And so that's where I got the name Bridgerland, Stranger Bridgerland. So for the book series. So
I was wondering about that because I kept thinking Bridgerton, and I was like, this doesn't seem like it would have anything to do with that.
No. Bridgerland. Yeah, Bridgerland. So and of course I'm saying it with like a Utah accent, so it just Bridgerland, and Jenny like goes all the way through. So.
Now that is very close, if I looked at my map kind of correctly, or reasonably close to like Arches National Park and like Moab and whatnot, right?
So those are all in the southern part of Utah. And and I'm in the very north. It's Utah
I
is
thought
just,
for some reason I thought Arches was like way up there.
it's down south too. It's kind of amazing.
Damn you,
Um, it's
geography.
yeah, and
Oh,
Utah
it's
is
here.
crazy with the type of terrain that we have all the way through, like, because you guys know Arches with the desert and the and all of the rock formations, and then up where I live is kind of like the high desert, and not too far from me it goes straight into the west desert. But if I go to the east, like 20 minutes, then I'm in a lot of forest that looks just like Colorado. So there's so much different stuff here in Utah. So
I
We
love
have
it there.
plains. We have lots of fields.
We
Well,
do. We do have some fields. They're very flat.
yes,
Mhm.
You can see really far until you see another building.
Iowa.
right.
Yeah.
You just
Mhm.
you got to stand on a milk crate, and then you can see to the next
Mhm.
state.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you need that
Mhm.
milk
Yeah.
crate though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get lost if I'm not near mountains. I feel, I guess it's the opposite of claustrophobic. I'm like, I don't know where I am or where I'm going. So
Oh, it's so weird going from flat to mountains too. Like you definitely, but Utah's a strange place. A lot of paranormal, weird phenomena, high strangeness, all that kind of stuff.
mhm.
Do you have any theories through all of your research, like why that area is a little bit more prolific, I guess, in the paranormal?
I think each area kind of has, I guess, different high strangeness. A lot of so in the area that I live, and I'm about 80 miles, maybe a little bit more, to Skinwalker Ranch, which is here in Utah as well.
Okay.
And so, each little area seems to have just your generalized weirdness. For example, not too far from here, there's an area near what's called Bear Lake. It's a great big lake up here that borders Utah and Idaho in the far corner. And near that, for example, I get a lot of Bigfoot stories that are all within probably a 10-mile radius in that area. And a lot of these people don't even know that other people are citing things. So I think there's sections, like there's areas where Bigfoot's really prevalent, and ghosts are everywhere, and Utah's well known for UFOs. And so I'm not sure if it's something in the rocks, to be quite honest, because I've heard theories that certain rocks can hold energy.
And this is where
And
Jeni comes in.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I love that. That was on my list of questions for you because the idea of paranormal, like geology, look at me, I'm actually using the right word, is so fascinating to me, right? That there can just be legitimate reasons for the amount of strangeness that occurs in those places. It's crazy. And you read some of the stories about some of those areas, and it's absolutely insane.
and another thing that goes right along with that too is water holds a lot of paranormal energy. And over, underneath the area where I live, the aquifer is just enormous. We basically live on top of a giant lake that's way down underneath us. And so I think that could have a lot to do with it too. Moving water supposedly has another energy source for all of these strange entities. So that could have something to do with it too.
Yeah. I love the idea of the water and specific locations because weird stuff happens there now, but weird stuff has always happened there, right? Like there's
Mhm.
gotta be a reason for the prevalence of a lot of these things in indigenous lore and
Mhm.
stories that are passed down and universal, right? Like across the globe.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And it's funny how you can go across the world, and they may have a different name for this entity, whether it's a fae or a ghost or whatever, but it's exactly the same as what people are talking about on the other side of the world. So
Yeah.
Now, you also mentioned before this, and I was thinking how strange it was, but you were discussing that you have like some fae stories, and
Mhm.
it's crazy because um I always think of those as like stories that don't happen in like the Americas, right?
Mhm.
I hear them, and I've actually sent pictures to a friend of mine, and she was like, "Yeah, that's totally the fae," and I was like, "I gotta go." Totally different story, and that just sounded like random gibberish,
Yeah.
um, but you have stories like from your area, right?
Yeah, I do. I'll tell you the one that really actually kind of opened my eyes, and it was the very first Faye story that I got. Um, there was this gentleman that I had met, and he heard that I collected stories, and this is quite a while ago because I've been collecting stories for 30 years. And I mean, it was obvious he had a story, but didn't want to tell me. And he finally opened up to me, and I'm so glad he did. But he basically had come to this area to visit a friend when he was in his early 20s, fell in love with the area, and just immediately moved. Um, and at the time, he would go hiking in the summer and fishing and then ski and everything. And one day, him and his buddy were going to go hike to an area. It's called Mount Naomi. It's a really tall peak up here. You can do it in one day, but they wanted to do, go up there and then spend the night and then come back. And at the last minute, his buddy couldn't go. And so he's like, well, I'm going to go. When you're in your 20s, you're like, oh, I'm invincible. I'll be fine alone. So um, he went, and he got a late start and got up there, and it started getting darker. And so he just made camp, which basically was he just had a sleeping bag and some stuff. There was a burn ban, which happens a lot in August up here where you can't have an open fire. So he just brought stuff that he could eat. Had something to eat. He always had a headlamp, and he would bring an old book to read till he got tired and then go sleep. And so he falls asleep, and in the middle of the night, he wakes up, and he's not sure what woke him up. He says, I am a really heavy sleeper. So something had to have woken me up, you know, and he couldn't figure out what it was. And he realized how quiet it was. I mean, just deathly quiet. And he's sitting there, and all of a sudden, off to his right, he can hear something start to whistle. And he's like, well, that's not a bird. I've never heard a bird like that. And birds don't whistle at night. And so he's getting really nervous, and he's trying to find his headlamp, and he can't find it. And all of a sudden, he gets hit in the chest with a rock about the size of a quarter. Not really hard, but enough to like trying to get his attention or something. And so
Yeah.
now he's really freaked out. So he slips his boots on, and the whistling starts again. And all of a sudden, he realizes, oh, I still have my headlamp on my head. And so he flips it on, and he turns to his right, and about 15 feet from him, sitting on a pile of rocks, is this creature. And even though he told me this before I ever saw Harry Potter, it was exactly like the creatures that work in the bank with the sharp nose and the sharp ears and kind
Ew.
of green gray and like homemade clothes on. And it's got really dark black eyes, but it puts its hand up like this to block his light.
Because he's all
And
pupil.
yeah, and he's just frozen. And he's like, and he's like, I've never had an experience a paranormal before or after this, and now I'm staring at something I have never even heard of. This doesn't exist. It can't. And he said he didn't know how long he was staring at this thing when he noticed its hand had one hand up and its other hand was sliding something behind it. And he looked and he realizes it's got his book in its hand. So it has been close enough to steal the book from him while he was asleep. And that kind of snaps him out of it. And he just grabs his sleeping bag and his pack and runs for the trailhead. And right before he gets to the trailhead, he trips and just sprawls with all of his stuff. And he's just trying to gather everything. And he says, right behind him, the whistling starts again. Not very far behind him. And he's like, and he leaves most of his stuff and runs from there all the way back to his truck. And he's like, he's like, I swear I'm not crazy. I promise I'm not crazy, but this is what I saw. And so, I was fascinated by it. And I thought it was amazing because I'd never heard anything like this before. So I did some research, and the Native Americans have a creature that they talk about that looks just like this, that lives in the forest. They're really nasty. They love to steal things. Very similar to some of the other creatures that you find in Northern European folklore and the fae that they talk about there. And so I write it in one of my books. I can't remember if it was my second or third book. I put it in there and published it. And when I published it, I'm like, I really got the feeling he was telling me the truth. Maybe he didn't see what he saw, but that's what I thought. I could tell he was very sincere. And then after I published that book, I'm not kidding you, I had 3 different people contact me that said they had similar experiences in that area with creatures like that. And the funniest one was I got an email from a woman, and the headline was "Thanks a lot." That was the title of the email. And I read, and her husband, when he was younger, had a run-in with this creature up there when he was on an elk hunt. And he told his wife about it. And she'd made fun of him for years because she's like, "You're crazy. That's not real. You made it up." And then she read that in my book, and she's like, "Thanks a lot." I had to go apologize to my husband after that. But it's funny because I'll get a story like that I think is kind of like a one-off thing, but then I'll have people come to me and say, "Oh my gosh, that happened to me there," or that, I had a similar experience, which is really cool. To me, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like if I were to be an author, that's why I do it. Everybody else, tell me more stuff.
Yeah. It's so fun. I'll tell you.
I would imagine. Also, can we just quickly acknowledge the sentence, "He was all pupil"?
Yeah.
Just because I'm listening to the story and that one got me. So there's an all pupil little sort of goblin-y guy. That is insane.
Yeah. It is. It's one of those, and it took me a long time to get him to tell me that story, and just how sincere he was. And what's funny is when I interview somebody, and they go right back to that, they often get very emotional, and he kind of did, so
yeah, there's got to be a lot of tells in there on how somebody tells you a story that really kind of
affected them.
Right.
Especially a story where they don't think anyone's going to believe them. And it was terrifying for them.
Right. Yeah. I had a lady that I contacted, and she had a story about when she was younger, she had a very abusive dad, and he would come home drunk. And he said she said when she was a little girl, every time her dad came home drunk, this old lady would show up and grab her by the hand and go hide her in the closet. But there was nobody in the house that looked like that. She would only show up to hide her. And she's telling me this story, and she stops and she says, do you really believe me? And I said, "Yeah, I really believe you." And she burst into tears, and she's like, "You're the first person in my whole life that I've been able to tell this, and they don't tell me, 'Oh, you're imagining it. You were in trauma and you just imagined it through your trauma and all this.'" And I said, "No, I think there was somebody there helping you." And she just cried and cried and cried because she hadn't been able to tell that story, and she was so grateful that somebody would listen to her and believe her. So
yeah.
What a relief.
Yeah, definitely.
Listen, Tressa, I need to make a pact to you right now that if you ever come to me with a wild story, I'll believe you. So you don't have to
Thank
struggle.
you for that. I also
Struggle
feel
for
this
support.
right
Excellent.
after
Perfect.
this message. Oop.
Have you been feeling called to explore your intuitive gifts and deepen your spiritual practice? Then Pathways to Spirit was created for you. Sarah Lemos has been teaching Pathways to Spirit for over 16 years. And in that time, she's watched hundreds of students grow into their gifts with confidence and clarity. This isn't just about learning tools. It's about understanding how your energy works and how to use it with intention. Over 6 months, you'll learn about your own intuitive abilities and how they show up, along with many esoteric tools and practices to help explore your potential. But this course is about more than just learning. It's about embracing your sensitivity and living your best life. Register now at mediumsarahlemos.com. It's time to uncover your gifts and abilities. Are you ready to join this extraordinary journey?
Oh man, I just I just love her. She is so great. All
She
right,
is the
so
best.
it
Real
is.
quick before we go back into
Oh yeah,
that, I wanted to address this comment. Kitty Catty Whack, thank you. I hope you girls reschedule Natalie. I saw that she was supposed to be on an upcoming show, but you
yeah.
girls didn't end up having the show that Tuesday. She will be back on the 3rd, February 3rd.
Yes.
So
Yes.
no doubts there.
Yeah, I know. I was very excited to have her on the show. She's really cool and obviously enjoys Bigfoot, so I like talking to her about that. Anywho, so just to listen, I just rewatched a couple of these movies and watched the most recent um volume of this movie called, and I understand that this is mostly made up, Horror in the High Desert. So that leads me, which phenomenal series of movies, very, very creepy, but it does lead me to ask, do you have a story that when you were hearing it just made the hairs on the back of your neck stand up? Like just gave you the creeps?
Yeah, there's actually been quite a few, but one, straight out of the West Desert that I really like. There was I got contacted by this woman who had her story. At the time, her and her husband were married and going to Utah State University, which is up here in northern Utah. And they used to love to go explore on the weekends. They would just throw stuff in their Jeep and just go. And one weekend, they grabbed another couple and they went out to the West Desert. They didn't even know really where they were going, but they ended up down from what's called the Golden Spike. That's where the Union Pacific and the other railroad met in Utah out there.
Yeah.
And so they're down there ways on one of the abandoned lines. They're right off of one of the abandoned railroad tracks up there. And they set up camp. They have something to eat. And then they're like, oh, you know what? We should go for a walk. We'll just walk down the railroad track so we don't get lost. And so they get on the railroad track, and they're the four of them are just kind of talking as they're heading west on the railroad track. And they're listening. You can hear the coyotes everywhere yelping and everything. And all of a sudden they hear a train whistle, which the trains now don't have whistles like that. I'll add that. And they stop, and the whistle came from the west towards where they're walking. And after the whistle goes, all of the coyotes stop. Everything stops. It's dead quiet. And they're sitting there and they're like, that was really weird. And they keep walking, but now they're not talking. They're kind of looking around. And down the track, there's a light. They can see a light. And they're like, well, that's kind of weird, And as they're walking, the light is getting closer and closer. And before long, when it comes into, close enough view, they can see it's an old oil lamp. It's got that orange glow, and they're looking, and it's coming towards them. and they realize that there's nobody attached to it. It's just kind of floating down the track. And so they step off of the tracks, off to the side. But they don't want to leave. They can't run off because they can't leave the track, or they won't be able to follow it back to camp. And they're sitting there, and as it gets closer, and as it passes by them, they can hear two people having a conversation, and she recognizes it as Chinese because she had some friends at Utah State who spoke Chinese, and it was two gentlemen speaking Chinese to each other, and then their voice kind of trails off, and they watch this lantern float past them and then down the track, and then it disappears, and then they heard the train whistle again from the east this time. And then slowly the sounds start coming back with the coyotes and all of this stuff like that. And come to find out, I did some research after that, and where they were camping was very close to where the Chinese camp was, because when they were building the railroad, they made the Chinese workers camp away from them. They didn't want anything to do with them. So it was near where one of the Chinese camps were from the Chinese workers, which was that was a really cool story to me, because I'd heard a lot of stories, secondhand stories about different things going on out there, including hearing, workers. It was a secondhand story, but there was a scout troop out there, and two of the scouts had woken up and could hear the ping, ping, ping of people hammering the nails up through. So it's a really spooky, weird place for sure out in the West Desert out there.
Oh. Yeah, that's creepy.
Yeah, it was very cool. But I've got, it's so hard to pin down those stories. And what really got me going in this was the fact that the home I grew up in was built in 1883 and was very paranormally active when I was growing up. It's still paranormally active with ghosts in there. So by the time when I was young, I remember I'd seen full apparitions, boots on the stairs that us kids called the stair monster, and things disappearing. And for example, one that stands out in my mind, I was a little kid, and I had an airplane that I was playing with, and I went into the kitchen, I set the airplane down on the table, and I turned around and got a drink, climbed up, got a drink. When I turned back around to get my airplane was gone, but there was a cap gun sitting where my airplane used to be.
What, just a little tradesies?
Yeah, a little tradesies. I picked it up and I took it to my mom, and she just kind of said, well, then play with that. She really didn't. She's like, I don't get what you're trying to tell me. But that cap gun was like from the 1920s and was in really good shape. And, just different things like that happened when I was a kid that got me into the paranormal throughout the years.
She fully was not like, where did you get this? This is a weird thing that we would own in this house. It was just, please get out of my face.
She's like, I'm trying to do laundry. That was my mom. She's like, I'm trying
let's be
to
honest.
Do laundry. Yeah.
I think all of our moms would have been like, whatever, I don't 100%.
Care.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Is it alive? Is it going to make a mess? All right.
Right. I'm a Gen X kid, so it was like she kicked me out of the house, said don't come back till the street lights are on, and then if I wasn't back in 2 days, then they would start to worry. Right. So that's how it was.
Drink out of the hose. Get out.
Yeah. My mom asked me about that the other day. She was like, what is this whole drinking out of the hose thing? And I was like, all right, well, let me ask you this. Do you think it's appropriate to drink out of the hose? And she was like, yeah, it's water. Used to all the time as a kid. And I was like, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah. Yep. That is exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So, but it was a different time. So it has that weird, I can still taste that hose flavor coming through. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
it was warm careful for the first 10 seconds.
Right. It would burn you if you weren't real careful in the summer. Yeah.
So bad. Oh,
been there. So.
Yep.
Anyway.
Tastes like metal. Delicious. I'm hydrated.
Yeah.
All that plasticky stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, but
Wow.
yeah,
So
so
was most of the activity like in your home when you were younger, was it just sort of like um I don't know, maybe like ambiguous, I guess, or like sort of just
s- for the most part, there was nothing
benign?
evil to it. Yeah, there was nothing evil to it. There was one of them, and I don't know how many ghosts there were. One of them is a huge prankster. Like he just loves to pull pranks. And the more it bothers you, the more he would prank you. And for example, so
Sounds like a
my
prankster.
Yeah, it
yeah.
really does.
So my oldest son, at the time, he spent a lot of time at grandma and grandpa's house. And when he was 15, the ghost really bothered him because he knew it really bothered him. And when my son was 15, grandpa hired him to paint, to do touch-up paint in the hallway in the basement. And so um, my mother had a snowman that was about 4 foot tall, and it had a sandbag base, so it was really heavy, and a
Mm.
burlap, and in the summer, or when it wasn't Christmas, it was in the basement. And when and my son never liked it. And he's in the hallway painting, and he gets a creepy feeling, so he takes his earbuds out and he looks around the corner, and in the corner is the snowman just kind of sitting there. And so he goes in, and he picks the snowman up and turns it and puts it in the corner like it's in timeout. And he goes back to painting, and he's painting for another 5 minutes, and he just gets like super creeped out. And so he peeks around the corner again to look, and not only had it turned around, but it was halfway across the room, in the middle of the room. And he was like, nope, I'm done. And he went and told my dad. He's like, Grandpa, i'm not I'm not doing another thing if that thing's in the basement. So
Nope. Burn
it
it.
got thrown on
Mhm.
the porch, and then it disappeared. And I was like, where'd it go? And my mom's like, oh, I sold it at a garage sale. And I was like, I hope nothing went with it, but
Yeah.
I hope it did.
yeah,
Goodbye.
goodbye. So yeah.
Why is that
So
so terrifying in the context of, like, if it were happening to you, but when you put it into the frame of mind of, like a prankster, like, it's hilarious.
yeah, it is. Well, and what's funny is, so um my wife Annie and I remarried about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, to Annie. And she's been great. She is I love my wife. She's amazing. But we were selling our house. So this is about 8 years ago. We were selling our house, but our new house that we were moving into wasn't going to be ready for a month. So we were just going to move into an apartment for a month. And my mom and dad were like, just stay upstairs. It's basically its own little mini place up there. You guys can stay there, save your money for a month. And we're like, oh, okay, that sounds good. And then my wife was like, oh, but what about the ghost? And I said, well, if I say out loud that you don't like being scared, and to leave you alone, he will. And so I did. When we were moving in, I'm like, this is Annie. She doesn't want to be scared. And so for 3 weeks, nothing happened. And we were upstairs folding clothes. And Annie goes, you tell a lot of stories about the house, but I haven't seen anything or heard anything. And I laughed and I said, well, if you would like him to introduce himself, I'm sure he would love to. And she laughed, and I was like, mm-hmm. And so the very next morning, I had to get up early and go to work. So she's laying in bed. She hears me get up, get dressed, and leave. And she's almost asleep. And somebody crawled into bed and put their arm around her waist. And she's like, and then she realized, oh my gosh, John's left. And she jumps out of bed and flips the light on to see an indent in that side of my bed lift up, and then a laugh that came from the house. And she calls me frantic. And I was like, I told you that,
Yep.
he would let her know. And so that last week, he was just relentless. If she was changing her if she was changing her clothes, he would poke her in the side like this, just in her side, or he would slap the wall when she was alone, and she would hear him laugh, and he just got the biggest kick out of it. And I was like, well, if you hadn't said
Asked
anything,
for it.
you'd have been fine. But
It's
yeah.
on you.
Yeah, exactly. So, but
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
oh my.
very crazy. So,
All right, so
very
yeah,
crazy.
I can understand the interest in the paranormal at that point.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
Did it ever, like, when you were a kid, was it like, this is just a thing that happens in houses to you? Or were there points where it was genuinely terrifying for you as a
Mm.
child?
So there were very few times that it was genuinely terrifying because I grew up in it. The one time that it was, excuse me, um, I think I was in 8th grade, right around there. And I came home from school and nobody was home. My mom was running errands, nobody else had come home from school. So I made myself a sandwich and I went into the front room and I was going to watch TV and have a sandwich. Before I could turn the TV on, there was some motion that caught my attention, and I turned, and standing in the doorway is this gentleman, and he's really tall. He had a white shirt and overalls and a wide brimmed hat, and I could see through him, and I couldn't see his facial features. And he walked into the front room and he sat across from me in my mom's rocking chair and started rocking back and forth. And I closed my eyes and I counted to 10 really quick. And I opened my eyes again and he was gone, but the rocking chair is still going, just going. And so I jumped up, ran outside, and refused to come in until somebody else was home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when stuff like that happened and you're young, I mean, you're going to get scared, obviously, but
Yeah.
there were very few times that any of us felt really super scared or that there was something malevolent or something
Mhm.
like that.
Right.
So, but yep.
I often think of it because, like, when you grow up with something and it's just around, you don't really think of it as being unusual. So I'm always wondering, like, how it affects kids when they are it's just there. That's just their life
Yeah.
growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. You go through stages where for a while you don't dare tell anybody because you're afraid, especially when you're a teenager. But
Right.
what got me to open up, excuse me, and my parents were like, they were adamant that we don't talk about it outside of the house when we were kids because of that fear that people would think we were crazy.
Yeah.
But by the time I was a teenager, I had friends that would come to the house and have experiences and want to know what was going on. And I finally had to say, yeah, I grew up in a haunted house. And then we would be at parties or we would be on double dates and they would be like, oh, John grew up in a haunted house. Let's have him tell stories. And so I
Yeah.
did. And of course, you got people that look at you funny, but it was always interesting to me because, excuse me, you would tell a story, and I got to the point where I would look around and I saw the people that were kind of scoffing and some of the people that were interested, and there was always at least one person that was in the back and was kind of like not making eye contact, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that person has their own story
Yeah.
that they're afraid to share. So, and I had people eventually start coming to me after, like they would come to me a couple days later and be like, I had an experience too, and that's what got me into like gathering stories at
Yeah.
that point. So
Yeah.
I bet.
yeah.
There's such a feeling of relief that comes from people when they get to, share their stories. Because that'll happen
Mhm.
to us just at conferences and whatnot, where
Mhm.
people just, or when you're watching, some of the more sort of like bigger name people who are actually investigating ghosts or like actually doing a lot of research on this stuff. Just people are so excited and relieved and like, here's this story.
Mhm.
Like, and
Yeah.
we think it's interesting and ask pertinent questions. Well, maybe not pertinent questions, but we're interested.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
No, yeah. And people love, like you say, it's very cathartic to be able to get that out, especially if you've held
Mhm.
on to it for years, It's
Mhm.
like it's just like any other trauma, really. It's until you get
Yeah.
rid of it, you can't heal from it. So, but
Yeah.
Speaking on cathartic, hey,
Oh, hey, Tressa.
Jeni? Oh, I'm just reading my book by international TV sensation, Dave Schrader. I'm reading the book too. I don't remember the name of it or who wrote it, but yeah. There, I like your shirt. You? I got it on monstersloungepodcast.com. You've got a great shirt too. Oh, that's so weird. I got it at monstersloungepodcast.com too. They have really great stuff. A full variety. I know, right? They have everything. Shirts. Tote bags. Clutches. A phone case, I think. It's the best.
Listen, I don't know if you have anybody signed up to do your advertising for your book or for your podcast or for your website or anything, but I want to tell you,
Yeah.
we do a bang up job.
Yeah. I was just thinking you guys are pretty amazing. The shifting from scene to scene was just so seamless. I didn't even notice that you went from inside to outside like that. That was awesome.
I know. It's like magic.
It was pretty cool. I love it.
That was the vision that we really were working with, was how do we make this magic?
Yes.
For our viewers.
Yeah.
I completely get that 100%. And that's what I felt while I was watching it. Oh.
Are there any stories that you hear so rarely that when you get one, you're like, yes, I'm so excited about this one again?
Yes. So along with the Fae stories that I get, and those Fae are probably the rarest one I get, but the ones that I get that are, just depending upon the situation are glitches in the Matrix stories.
Oh,
that I'm just fascinated with them.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite that I got, this gentleman contacted me, okay, and he grew up around the same time I did, graduated in the early 90s. He came from a small town in Colorado, and after he graduated from high school, he left he was out of the country for about 2 years for his church, doing work, and then came back to do some work around before he went to school in Utah. So the summer that he's back, he's doing work installing home computers and fixing home computers for people. And he gets called to a house, and he's like, oh, I know this house. This is where my friend Diana lives, that I went to high school with. And he rolls up, and it's an old lady that lives there. And he's like, this is weird. I wonder where Diana is, and he's talking to her. And he goes, after he's finished, he asked this lady, he's like, how long have you lived here? And she's like, oh, I've only lived here about a year. She said, the couple that had it before me, their daughter died, and they moved to Arizona. And I was like, oh, and so he leaves there and goes to the library after work, and he finds Diana's obituary. And she had died. She'd had an appendicitis burst, and she got very sick and passed away. So he goes to her grave, sees her grave, and he's mourned the loss of his friend. And a few weeks later, he goes off to college, and down the road, he's graduated, he's married now, and he hasn't spent a lot of time back in his old town. But 1 year he goes back. They go to his mother's, who still lives there, for Thanksgiving, and they're getting ready for Thanksgiving. And his mother's like, I forgot the Cool Whip for the pie. You've got to go down to the store and get it. They had one little store in the town, the little grocery store. And he's like, okay. So he goes there, and there's a lot of people getting stuff in there. And he goes in, and he comes around the corner, and he gets run into by a cart, and he looks up into the face of Diana, and she's there with a little kid. And she goes, oh my goodness, I haven't seen you in forever, and gives him a big hug. And he's like, what in the heck is going on, you know? And he's like in shock, and they're talking. He goes, I heard that you got really sick that year after high school. And she goes, oh, yes. She's like, my appendix burst and I almost died. Like it was really close, but I was able to get better and everything. And he goes, oh, you know, that's great. And so after he stops talking to her, he proceeds to just leave the Cool Whip, go get in his car and drive to the cemetery. And her headstone is gone. It's not there. He's the
What?
only one that remembers that she passed away. He
Oh.
remembers vividly reading her obituary, vividly visiting her thing. He mourned her forever, but nobody else in town remembers that. But he said, I know I didn't dream that, because we were really good friends, and there were years after that I would think about her and be like, you know, I can't believe she passed away. You know, every once in a while something would happen, and he would think back to that. And in his, wherever his memory is, or what he was from, she's dead. But in this timeline, or whatever you want to call it, she is alive and well. So, and that one's one that really just kind of floors me.
I really hate those stories because it's like the universe is trying to make you go insane.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know what I remembered, but everyone's telling me I'm
Mhm.
wrong.
Right. It's one of those things. It's crazy. And I've gotten quite a few stories like that where people remember things a certain way very vividly.
Yeah.
And other people remember it a different way.
That's wild and strange. And I can't quite wrap my head around the fact that he left the store without the Cool Whip.
Yeah, right. And he drove
Like,
to the cemetery, so his mom was probably like, where are you with the Cool Whip?
you can't leave
I
Cool
need
Yeah.
the
Whip,
whip shopping.
I know. But yeah.
But that
crazy.
is so, yeah, that's one of those.
Yeah.
That's one of those super
Really
weird
weird.
ones.
Yeah.
That's one of those ones like have you heard of this? And I'm a recent listener on this one, but the mall world.
Oh yeah, the
thing.
underworld. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so like there's a place that people go in their dreams and it's called Mall World, and it's a reoccurring sort of dream, but it's a reoccurring in the fact that this location, you keep going back to this location. And it's
Yeah.
so similar to other people dreaming about this particular place. And you're like, oh yeah, I had a dream about Mall World. And you're like, wait a minute, I have reoccurring dreams where I'm at some sort of mall.
Yeah.
And like it just sort of feeds. That one gets me.
Yeah. There was also a time, and I don't remember what it was called, but I can see the face. But there was a psychologist who started having patients say, oh, I keep running into this man, and they had somebody draw the picture, and it's people from all over the country who have had this man in their dream.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. Yeah, you'll have to look it up. It's called the man who shows up in everybody's dream, and some people
Did
will
they
see
make
it
a
for the
movie
first
about
time.
that?
I don't know. They should if
I
they
think-
haven't. So
I
Yeah.
think that they were planning on, and I could be wrong. This might be just my son messing with me, but I think that
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage was supposed to play the weird man.
Oh
Which
yeah,
checks out.
actually, I did see that movie. Yeah, it was very similar to
it's
that.
okay.
Yeah, they did make that. And in this dream, like it first starts out where he's nice to everybody in their dream, but then later on his dream person starts being mean to everybody, so everybody hates him and ostracizes him. And so yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, I've seen that. So it's weird. For
Makes him
sure.
smart.
Yeah. But
All right. So we got a little bit of time for I know what I wanted to know. Most obvious statement ever. All right, so let me tell you just very quickly like my story, and
Yeah.
you can tell me if you've heard something similar. And I'm assuming Tressa's laughing at me because I'm getting into my serious stance.
I'm just liking this direction, and I'm really enjoying watching it. Go ahead.
So I was in Arches, super late at night, looking at the stars, wandered off by myself, saw something low to the ground, sort of skittering across the trail ahead of me. Just absolutely got a super malevolent vibe from it. And then hightailed it out of there. Now, I had been wandering around town asking everybody about skinwalkers because it's me and that's how I roll. And it's one of my favorite, one of the most terrifying like legends ever in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard anything similar to that?
So yes, I have kind of a similar story that happened in southern Utah. So this is what's amazing about this story is I got contacted by this gentleman, and it was his dad who was failing in his health, but through his son, he was able to give me a story. But he was an anthropologist at a big university, and when he was a grad student in the late 70s, this guy was working on an Anasazi ruins in the Four Corners area. And they had really weird things that would happen all the time. They had balls of light that would show up at dusk and basically run them off the site. And one night, he was the last one there, and he's trying to clean up. And all of a sudden, he can hear footsteps going around the dig site. And he yells out and then it would stop and nobody would answer. And so he gets really nervous. And he starts heading back towards his car, his vehicle, and he can hear something chasing him, but can't see anything. So he runs to his vehicle and drives off, scared to death. And so he calls the head. At the time, the head archaeologist that was running the dig site, and said, this is what happened to me last night. And he said, well, let's go down there before anybody comes, and we'll look and see. And so they go down there. And they could see from the dig site these huge wolf tracks, just enormous, that had followed him up and back towards his car. And then he had left, and then the tracks turned and went into the desert. And so they started following the tracks. And as they followed the tracks, he said, in the dirt, very obvious, they slowly transformed from huge wolf tracks into barefoot tracks right before their eyes. Like within like about 5 feet, it went from 4-legged huge paws to 2-legged bare feet running off into the desert. And he's looking at the archaeologist guy, and he's like, what is this? And he's like, yeah, we're not going to talk about it. And he goes, what do you mean we're not going to talk about it? He says, I don't want to hear you say one word about it. Don't tell anybody nothing. But from then on, the head guy in charge made sure everybody was out of there 2 hours before dark, and nobody could go there till 2 hours after the sun had come up. And he was very strict about that for obvious reasons. But that was very much an honest to goodness skinwalker situation where it was he's like, and what's awesome is that this is a scientist I'm talking to who have spent years in the scientific field, who is telling me I saw wolf tracks turn into human tracks on the trail right in front of me, and I can't explain how that happened. And so that's one of my favorite probably skinwalker stories that I have. So
that's so good. I love it when scientists like back it up.
Yeah.
It's just so great. Like
if
that's
I can
right,
get scientists or a police officer or first responders, because they're trained in paying attention too. So
right.
Yep. It's pretty amazing.
Listen, we're at the end of our hour. Jeni, do you have anything else you want to add?
I don't have anything else I want to add outside of just hearing what you're up to, where people can find you, all of those things.
Yeah, so you guys, they can find me on strangerbridgerland.com is my website. All of my books are available on Amazon. If you just look up Stranger Bridgerland book series or John Olsen book series, and they're available on softback or Audible, Kindle, on
Wow.
everything. They're available now, so which is great. My last book was Stranger Idaho, which is all stories from Idaho. My new book that's coming out in August this year will be Stranger Alaska. I got a ton
Ooh,
of stories from Alaska that
I
have just
bet.
been amazing.
yeah,
I love it. I love Alaska. I went up there this fall, and we're going back this next
nice.
fall. Me and my wife. If I could move to Alaska, I would. I love that up there. But yeah, so
Nice.
yeah, and you can find out. I'm in March 21st. I'll be at UVU. University that's down near Provo, not BYU, the other one. I'm speaking at their folklore comp. They have a Saturday where they do a folklore symposium, and I'll be speaking there. So
Oh, fantastic.
yeah,
Well,
Absolutely
I
fantastic.
personally would love to ruin all your books and have you tell us all of the
All the
stories.
stories.
and
So everyone
anytime
has
you
a
guys
website.
want me back,
Oh,
anytime
Holy
you guys want me
100%.
this has
back,
been great.
please. Yeah, let me know
Thank you
because
so
I have a
much.
lot of them, a lot of stories, and you guys are great questions. I love your show, so you guys do a great job.
Thanks.
It's our favorite
You,
thing is listening to stories. So,
Yeah,
yes,
mhm.
I really enjoy this. So thank you very much.
you bet. Thank you guys.
Yes. But we
Oh,
have a
I couldn't
website.
even hear
You can
that.
go there. And if you go on the website, you can find our email, and you can email us, and you can find our merch store, and you can find all this other stuff all about us. So go check that out and stuff. But until next time, thank you for visiting us at the Monsters Below.